Good afternoon, and welcome to IAB There, our weekly live stream in which we connect the digital advertising ecosystem. I'm Angelina Ang, the Vice President of the Measurement, Addressability, and Data Center here at the IAB. And in today's session, which is titled The Evolution of Data Driven Advertising Past, Present, and Future, we'll be discussing the changes in data driven advertising and how marketers can best use quality data to their advantage to run better performing campaigns. Now, with that said, I'm excited to welcome to the show Amy Benowitz. Uh, she'll probably correct me. I am so sorry. President of LB Digital. Amy's focus and expertise is helping premier marketers grow their business using quality and scalable data for cross-channel marketing. She started in 1994. Oh, same year as me, in direct mail data, now offering email, digital, mobile, gaming, audio, digital out of home, created target audiences with privacy compliant and accurate data. And as president of LB Digital since 2005, she's led their ongoing mission to help marketers improve their return on ad spend by increasing the accuracy and relevancy of the data that they use in their campaigns. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much.
Okay, can you please correct me on how to pronounce your last name, just so that everyone's clear? I'm so sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's Polish. It doesn't sound what it looks like. So it's Benzowitz, but you could
Benz-
just call me Amy. That's why I have a nice, easy first name.
That's cool. So, you and I've talked before we had before we met here, and you started in 1994. So you and I kind of have like almost like parallel path, career paths in this industry. One of the things that we talked about is like how data has been used over the years and how digital marketing and advertising has changed. You know, let's talk about that, right? So how is data different or is it the same? Are we dealing, and the way that we approach data? Are marketers approaching data the same way or has a lot changed or hasn't it changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really interesting to think about it because, back in 1994, there was what? There was direct mail, there was phone data, and that was it. And data was collected through, certain methods. There were surveys, there were purchase data, and and public records, and there wasn't really a lot else. So there was a limited amount of data. The way that marketers would access the data, there was typically a relationship between a broker, a list broker, and a list manager, that the broker would represent the advertiser and they would purchase data through a list manager that would kind of guide them through the selects and make recommendations and things. So it was like a really clear path where to go and how to learn what to do with data. Now, as times changed and we moved into email and things involved, you click to the internet and clients or consumers, excuse me, are doing things independent of a direct mail piece. They're on the internet just making decisions and clicking on offers and making purchases. And then, when the whole digital world exploded with display advertising, mobile advertising, and now, onward and upward to TV and further, not only were people making data decisions more independently and not having the data professional that they consulted to find out what best audience to use, but now big data is exploding because there's not just data from direct mail responses, there's not just data from surveys, and there's not just data from public records. There's every single thing a person is doing. They're clicking on an email, they're opening the email, they're going online, they're registering, they're making a purchase, they're visiting a website, they're thinking about buying Gap jeans. All of that is collected. So now there's this huge amount of data that's there, and there's less people going to professionals for advice. So how do they know they're making the right data decisions? How do they know, even though there's something on a platform with data, but how do they know that that's really the best for their use case? Because everyone, every data is great if it meets your use case. So there's not like so much good data, bad data. It's what is your use case? What are you trying to do? So if you're trying to advertise something big like the Super Bowl or, a new Sony Pictures movie that's out in the theaters, you kind of just want branding. You want people to just see this offer. You don't need it to specifically be a certain age group or, a certain interest level. It could kind of just be out there, and, people, a certain number of people are going to see it, and it's going to, influence them to do what you want them to do. But if you're trying to sell something, if you're trying to sell, a weight loss offer, or you're trying to get people to sign up and pay for this event, like a B2B event, you don't want to blast it to everybody. You're completely wasting your money. So in that case, you want to know, how can we reach just the people interested in our offer? And for instance, in a B2B event, you could, go to all B2B people, you could go to a certain industry, you could go to a certain title of people. So it really depends. What I'm trying to say is it really depends on what you're looking for people to do and how they've responded in the past. Like if you want someone to sign up for a newsletter, you could not just use like, what is their title and industry, but who has signed up for a newsletter in the past. So there's like really deep ways that you could look into data and mix and match certain sources. So it's really just right for the client, and they'll get the greatest, return on ad spend with that.
I think, to me, and just looking back, the biggest difference between now and back when digital just started kind of evolving, is that you talked about direct mail. So I remember those BRC cards, right? Business reply cards that were in magazines. And so the only way that marketers were able to leverage and collect or use PII data was either through a lead gen initiative, right? So like a direct mail, or through a BRC uh, uh, um, mailing.
The card.
Um, and then you had like you said, the public records, U.S. Postal Office, U.S. Postal Office was a primary source. My husband actually worked at the Postal Service,
Uh,
and was selling the lists out to companies to use. So you just brought back a whole wave of memories.
uh,
And and then you had, additional sources, but most of it was opt-in, right? If you think about it, and
right.
public records were obviously up for grabs. Um, and then we had like do not call, do not mail kind of stuff started rolling out. And when digital happened, you have cookies, which are tracking everyone. And so now we're at this point where privacy and user opt-in and opt-out is kind of like at the forefront. What do you see in terms of challenges with marketers right now, when it comes to being able to target audiences and measure the effectiveness of their campaigns? We've been using cookies and identifiers to do those matches for both offline and online transactions.
Right. So with direct mail and even telemarketing, in the US, there was an organization, the DMA, which is Direct Marketing Association, which is now part of the ANA. And they had lists that any consumer or a business person could get on, one called the Do Not Mail Suppression File, and one called the Do Not Telemarket Suppression File. And that was a really easy way that not only can people get on the list if they don't want to receive, any advertising, mail, or phone calls, but it also enabled marketers to go to one place and run their mail through this list to suppress the people that requested it. Um, and it was pretty easy, and it was very well followed. Now there's not such a list. There's, a couple of companies are, creating their own list, but there's no one place that digital advertisers can go to run a suppression file. So it's really people, opting out to all different websites, different mobile apps. And it's really kind of a mess. And it's also not clear in terms of what it means to be, on a digital list. I think people don't realize that it's very different than a postal list or even an email list. A digital list is completely anonymized. So, people don't know Amy Benzowitz works at, LB Digital, and this, and this is my title and everything else. they would just see like my cookie, which you mentioned, which is completely anonymized. It's just a whole mess of letters and numbers in a row. And so no one online, whether I'm a consumer or my business persona, knows that it's me. They don't know my address. They don't know my email address. They don't know how to reach me. They just know that this set of numbers and letters, you know, likes to, join things like the IAB and likes to, be involved in professional communities. So I think, what people don't know is that it's anonymous. So when you're online and you're doing something, you're looking at Gap jeans, and then you get all these ads for jeans, following you around. They don't know it's you. But if you're looking to buy jeans, it's kind of nice that you're getting all these offers there that, people are trying to kind of help you out with your purchasing decisions. So I think it's really good if people can really understand what it is to be targeted online, whether it's by cookies that are, maybe going away, or maids on the mobile devices, or, unique IDs that are, many platforms are using now to replace the cookies. It's not someone actually following you, and they don't look through your computer's camera and see what you're doing. They don't know it's you. It's just, you have an interest and they pick up on it, and you get relevant ads versus otherwise you get just irrelevant ads or general ads. So I think that sometimes there's, I see things on TV, on 60 Minutes, on the news, and they're like, people are following you around the internet. Don't give them your info. But if you really look at it as somebody that's trying to give you an offer that's targeted versus untargeted, and they don't know who you are, I say, where's the harm? I mean, people can still, I'm all for opting out if you want to, but at least I think people should be able to understand in a realistic way what it is.
Well, I think, there's a couple of things that you said that I want to hone in on. One is I completely agree. It's not like we are following people around. It's when the algorithms notice that you're on a website, and you actually, your device meets the targeting parameters that the advertiser wants to send a message to. And so through these algorithms, it's doing a matching, it's not following. But I do think that, when we're over the years, and I've worked at, a very large identity uh, source company. You can look it up. And when we started doing CRM onboarding, that I think, and able to match it to Facebook IDs or Facebook email addresses and Google email addresses, and such, that kind of that now we've shifted towards a perception of possibly, kind of treading into some privacy areas.
Right.
But I also think, and so that I think has been one concern over the years, is like, do
Mhm.
people understand that their data is actually being matched on the back end so that we can provide them with targeted relevant ads? But I think the other factor, and maybe which is why we're kind of in this situation in the first place with the deprecation of cookies and such, is like from the remarketing standpoint.
Mhm.
I think many of us, or over frequency consumers, that has led this perception of this creepy factor of ads following them. And
Right.
so I think we have, as an industry, have not done a good job in educating consumers about really what's happening, right? And how their data is being used, or how the cookie is being used. But number two is, we didn't have the right controls or even the right guidance to help the end users who are actually running these platforms to manage the campaigns properly.
Absolutely. And that's so important. That's some great points there, that it's on both sides. It's making sure that, the digital advertisers and platforms are responsibly doing the ads, so it isn't creepy, as much as it is, enabling the consumers to learn more about what's really happening with the ads. I think sometimes it could be fabulous, like, you know, for instance, if someone's pregnant and they're getting all these offers for free diapers, like I wish I could have that when I was pregnant way back. Like they're in
Coupons for
these,
formulas, coupons for diapers,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Like there's a lot of reasons why it's a good idea for, for a diaper company to be able to reach the right audience, and for the right audience to be able to get these offers. In a way, it's a beautiful thing, but you're right. There's still a lot of things that both the industry and our communication with consumers can be sorted out.
So in the last, so there's been a lot of conversation. So here at IAB, we've been kind of, you know, uh, beating the drum around privacy regulations going to impact the way that we leverage data, the deprecation of cookies and identifiers, and already with Apple's ATT and iOS changes. What has been the impact that you've seen with your clients, and what are the solutions that you're kind of embracing to help mitigate some of the challenges that you're facing?
Sure. So first, there's the question, like, is Google actually going to deprecate cookies? That I kind of question because, they said it several years ago, then they
Yeah.
delayed it, and they delayed it again. And I kind of wonder, are they realizing they don't really have another solution for themselves? So, that's one thing that I think could be a possibility. But in the meantime, it really comes from, in my opinion, like the platform level, because they're really the ones that are gathering the data for the publishers and for the advertisers. They're also the ones that, when we onboard with certain companies, it's all the platforms that are getting our data and putting it in the format that it's going to be used online. So it's really interesting. There's been a lot of companies, such as LiveRamp was actually one of the first ones. You got Newstar, you got the Trade Desk, and their Lotame. It goes on, of companies that have devised their own IDs. That really, when you look into it, a cookie is actually like an envelope. It's like a container that's holding these IDs online, which, like I said, is like numbers and letters that are just all mixed up, meaning something. And so the IDs, which these companies are creating, are simply unique numbers and letters representing someone that doesn't have the container. So
Right.
it's kind of almost the same thing, but different. So it's really not that different. It's just now everyone's, kind of using their own IDs, and they're all integrating with each other, kind of like they did with cookies. So everyone had their unique cookies, all the different platforms, and now they're integrating with their IDs. So I think with that solution, there really won't be like much of a change or anything so different. I think where it's going to be is going to be the publishers that are the ones collecting the data online. And the real difference is that they do have to work with one of these platforms that have IDs. They had to have a way to have their website communicate with the digital marketing world. This is, the same thing. It's this person came on my website, they visited this page, that page, and, whatever information they're sharing with advertisers. So I think from what I've heard from different platforms, some say, well, we have a better product than cookies, and we're going to go forward with it anyway, even if cookies go away. Others are still more like using other people's solutions, or sort of still more trying to figure out their own solution. One company I work with even has a solution where they're calling privacy clusters, which is gathering like, 5 or 10, what would have been a cookie, which was a browser/computer, into one grouping so that it meets the regulations. So everyone's kind of coming up with these things. I think it'll be really interesting to see what actually happens in the next few years, if people go to these new solutions, or if it really, we could still use the old ones.
Are your clients investing into building out their first party data? And are you seeing the same happening on the publisher side?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, our clients are kind of building out their first party data as much as before. I know there's been a lot of talk about it because, the cookies for first party are still going to be able to be used. I think there's still a comfort that there's still going to be the third party data on the platforms. It's just going to be, looking like a RAMP ID or a UID, or, the other really interesting thing is that the platforms and digital companies, whereas, 5 years ago, nobody was talking about PII. Nobody was talking about name, postal, email, which is, obviously from where I started, and what we still do have is that information going right through to, IPs and IDs and all that kind of stuff. Now they all want it. Now it's like a commodity. It's like,
Yep.
we want, your personal identifiable information. It's what's needed actually to onboard data to be used on the social platforms, as you said. So that's kind of the solution for that, is they're looking for third-party data that initiates with PII to push to the social platforms. You can't push cookie source data or maid source data to Facebook, for instance. So that's something that's really changed, I think, well, in my opinion, for the better, because we've always been prepared, and it's kind of like a circle where things are going. Essentially, an audience is an audience, right? So whether that audience is offline, whether it's online, whether it's in an ID, an IP, a HEM, a CTB idea, whatever you want to call it, reaching someone interested in fly fishing is reaching someone interested in fly fishing. And that's kind of the cool thing. Like, my company still has, and we still do, provide data for direct mail that people are still doing. So we have postal, we have email, we have IP, we have IDs, we have the whole thing. So that's become something that people look for, not just for advertising on social platforms, but identity linkage. It's everyone's looking for all these different identifiers, and it's going back to the PII again.
So what's the number one thing that your clients are looking for to do in 2023?
I'd say the number one thing is how to sort of find, I guess you'd call it the next best thing, how to improve the return on ad spend, how to do something a little different, how to bring something to, the head of their company that is unique, that can work better. For the advertising agencies, they really want to bring something to the table that will just be kind of revolutionary for their clients in terms of the return on ad spend. And as a matter of fact, like, we actually create like really custom programs at LB Digital. Like, our only business is data. So it's not like it's a byproduct of something we do, which a lot of these companies it is, like credit bureaus. This data is just a byproduct of what they do, and a lot of these publishers and whatever. So we really focus on how to create the best data experience for the client. And for instance, we just created this custom program for one of the largest computer manufacturers in the world. It's a Fortune 500 company, and they have, their customer base, but they wanted to start a new product that they wanted to launch, and they wanted to get businesses buying who are looking to buy servers, because they wanted to sell these servers. So they came to us, and what we did was we created a custom segment of business people looking to buy servers based on online activity. It was a completely proprietary segment to them. And then what we did was we matched it back to our business database, found that it was extremely high match rate, which is good because it's accurate information. We sent that back to the client, who ran it by not only their database partner's database, but also their customer file, and found that there was like 70% match rate, which is great. And so and they're actually doing this on the phone. They're doing telemarketing, so it has to be accurate. And they found that it actually decreased their sales time in half and increased the purchase by 2 against other lists. So that's one thing, like, we're really proud. They just gave us another product to work on with this program, as well as consumer gaming product. So it's doing that and really seeing that success of their return, and them wanting to continue. That really, makes it unique. And a lot of other companies, like, may or may not, put together like custom, not just the list, but the program that works for the client. And I think if there's anything I would tell to brands, agencies, platforms this year, is that to really, turn to a list professional if that's not your specialty. and really see what you can get out of the data, because it may not just save you on your data by having accurate data. You're not sending out, the ads and spending money on the ad spend to people that may not be in your audience, but you're also honing in on who's the best, most relevant audience at this time. If you get a custom program like that example that I just shared that we created.
That's great. One more question, since we're almost out of time.
Sure.
Any predictions or anything that you're excited about as we're entering into 2023? I know we're, it's early February. A lot has happened already in just 1 month. So, what do you foresee is going to be hot in 2023?
Hmm. So I think it's the trend towards identity graphs is just going to continue, and especially with the changes we're talking about potentially in cookies and maids, it's just even more so. People are looking more for now, like hashed emails and other different identifiers to be included in their identity graph, so they could continue to reach, their customers and their prospects. I think in terms of data, I think the different channels that we're seeing, like I had said, as we talked about kind of going through the years and data and how different things changed, and there was, display, and then mobile, CTV has been hot the last few years. And now there's an awful lot going on with audio. And I think gaming and, digital out of home is next, because digital out of home is now programmatic, which I think all these different channels are kind of getting into that game, and just, it's just going to explode.
Yeah, we're, especially I think with digital out of home, you look at the retail media networks
Mhm.
and in store, having digital out of home in store and outside of the location. We've been hearing a lot about that. Well, Amy, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And such a fascinating conversation. So it's always great to talk to someone who's been around for a while and really have seen kind of like where we started, and after 27 years, um, almost, so something like that.
Yes, it's my pleasure, Angie. Thanks so much for having me. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Okay, so everyone, I'm Angelina Ang, and thank you for watching.